Not to be weird.
Hi everybody, I'm Jasmine Navarro, certified family coach, and I work with teenagers and parents, helping them support well-being in companies and educational institutions. And as you know, every week I do LinkedIn Lives where I interview different experts who make a difference. And today I'm super excited to be interviewing my friend Sarah. Sarah, tell us, who are you? That sounds a bit. Who are you and what do you do?
So, hi everyone. I will keep this really short and sharp, but basically, my background is all in change management and organisation development. So I would lead business transformation projects, and I am also a certified coach as well. And I like to specialise in doing leadership coaching. So yeah, that is an amalgamation of my skill set. And I also, if you connect with me on LinkedIn, you'll find that I talk a lot about supporting women in the workplace and women in male-dominated environments. However, it's not exclusively to women because, having had male clients in the past, I understand that they struggle with very much the same things that a lot of women do in the workplace. And I'm really passionate about promoting women into helping them get promoted into leadership roles, because in my corporate experience, I've seen what I class as hidden leaders. And I've seen so many of them, people who really care about making a difference. They live with purpose, they lead with their values, they behave really well, but it's just that they don't big themselves up enough, and so that often leaves them being overlooked. And really what I've found is, from my corporate experience, my coaching experience, is it really just goes back to what's in our mindset that can really set us back. And so that's basically what I'm going to be talking about today. You asked me what I wanted to do, and I wanted to talk about the 3 mindset practices that will help you get promoted, and that's what I picked. And I'll tell everyone how I'm going to present them. So I'm going to talk about 3 practices, and then each of these practices.
I just want to say before we start that I love your energy, and it wakes me up. So it comes back to energy is so important as well. But anyway, it makes me feel awake. But yeah, carry on. Tell us, why did you choose this title? It seems an amazing.
I'm just going to say this though, like I'm probably pretty unbearable for most extroverts. They're like, oh my God, which is weird because in my Myers-Briggs type, I'm the most introverted of extroverts, but I can be like, woo, like once I'm on my soapbox talking about something I love, there's no shutting me up. But that's another story. We've only got half an hour, so I will be wrapping up because I've got to go and watch the kids and watch Married at First Sight, but that's another story. So I'm going to talk about the way in which I'm going to present this to the audience is I'm going to talk about, in each of the practices, I'm going to give you 3 things to take away, which is, number 1, what is the mindset practice? So I'll just explain a little bit about it. Number 2, why is it going to help you get promoted? Because I want to actually give you the tangible reasons, not just some fluff. And number 3 is, how can you do it? Like, how can you actually build it into your day-to-day life? I really want people to walk away with like the actual tangibles, so they can walk away today and go, right, I need to do X, Y, and Z. That will position me to feel better about myself and put myself forward for promotion.
Brilliant. So there'll be actually tips that people can take away that they can actually do immediately.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I might do is I've got a tool that I will paste into the comments.
That
will help people.
Oh, amazing. Yes, please, thanks. And we've got someone here already because this is actually being streamed on Facebook, YouTube as well. Somebody from Facebook. Hi, I can't see your name. Sorry about that. Hi, lovely to have you here. Right, hello. Sarah, tell us. What's the first step?
Right. The first thing. So the first one, probably the most critical one that I find myself working on a lot with clients, is how you speak to yourself. That's the number 1 thing, right? If there's one skill that you absolutely must master in life, it's how you talk to yourself. And what that means is what tends to happen, the way I find people talking to themselves is they're either in a critical voice towards themselves, they're in a kind of victim voice towards themselves, or they're in this voice where I call the firefighter, where it's kind of like, have you seen that meme where someone's in the office and they throw the papers and it's like, I'm out of here? And it's kind of, it's that kind of mentality as well. I had clients in the past who are very much like, whenever something stresses them out, they're like, done with this, I'm booking a holiday, failure. Yeah, I'll give up. The other voices are like, I'm not good enough. What if I'm going to get found out? What if people know I don't know what I'm talking about? You know, what if I'm not clever enough, or you know, I'm not from the right background, things like that. These tend to be your kind of that victim voice, or else your critical voice, like, who are you to put yourself out there? Like, who am I to speak up? And I don't even know anything, when we're being quite cruel towards ourselves. So that's the first thing I want you to, that's what we need to look at, is how are you speaking to yourself? That's the first thing that's going to help you get promoted, and I'll tell you why, okay? The reason why is because people buy into confidence, all right? What tends to get people promoted is confidence in the work that they do. Unfortunately, it's a hard truth. It's a hard pill to swallow, because what should get us promoted is competence. But what tends to get people confuse confidence and competence.
Oh, yes.
And unfortunately, that's still the world that we live in. So if you can start to build confidence, what you'll be doing is you'll be building trust. And trust is the thing that gets you promoted, because people look at you and go, she knows what she's doing, he knows what, I can trust them, they'll help me do a good job as well. So that still seems a little bit abstract, so I'm going to explain a little bit more.
Yeah.
When you are, like, trust is what breeds certainty in the brain. So if you're giving your boss certainty, that means that they'll look at you as like you're positioned well, you know what you're doing, and you, like, they can rely on you to deliver, which means that they will look good as well. And I'll explain why that's important further down, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So, but in order to actually start to build confidence in other people, you need to be able to build confidence in yourself first.
Definitely.
All right. So I always say that success is an inside game. So you need to start with you first. And the way that you start with you is by figuring out, how am I speaking to myself? So when you start to, if you're moving through the world speaking to yourself like you're a piece of crap, like you're going to get found out, that no one knows, that, you know, you think people don't know what you're doing, essentially you're moving through life in this sort of energy. You're giving off this energy that might be quite insecure or uncertain. So that's not going to breed trust. People can read energy, and I always say as well, it's not just about what you say, it's about what you're thinking and what you feel as you say.
Yes, yeah.
And that's essential for like good presentation skills as well. So just to recap, how you speak to yourself, if you're speaking to yourself in a really good way, then that builds confidence in you. And if you're emulating confidence, that's going to build trust in the people who make the decision to promote you, assuming that you're around them and they get to see that. I know there's obviously contextual factors, but in the simplest terms, in the time that we've got, that's what I want to relay. So how do you start to do that? How do you start to look out how you speak to yourself and start to change those patterns? Take a breath.
Well, I guess the first thing as well, isn't it, is the awareness of how you speak to yourself, because maybe a lot of us don't actually realise, because I didn't realise, well, maybe I did, but not at that level. Yes,
not at that like conscious level where you're going, okay, I'm speaking to myself like this again. So what I want the audience to know is that our brain's natural default position is to look for things that are a threat or that make us worry or that we've got to look out for. So that's why you're always getting these kind of, and anyone who's listening, just stop for a moment and just notice what you're thinking about. Is kind of like, what am I getting out of this webinar? Is she making sense? Am I taking anything from this? Like, being really, your brain's always kind of on the lookout for what's going on in the external environment. And so that's why we're always tending to be in that kind of critical voice or that victimized voice. When we slow down and we create space for ourselves, we can really find that voice that I call the inner leader. So how do we start how do we start to change the way that we speak to ourselves? If you're noticing right now that actually you don't speak to yourself in a very kind way, then the first thing I want you to do is, I want you to start journaling. Just start doing a little bit of journaling. It's a really, really simple tool that we advise in coaching, but it's a really powerful tool, because if you start journaling what's in your brain, and I like to call it like, just get that download down onto a bit of paper, just journal everything that's in your brain, you will start to see how, like, if you read it back, you'll see what kind of energy is laced throughout those words. So Is that confident energy? Is it a victimized energy? Is it a suffering energy? So start journaling, and that'll indicate the voice in which you're speaking to yourself in, right? Number 2 is you want to create a new story, okay? So if you write down do the dump, a mind dump or brain download on a bit of paper.
Write anything, yeah? Or is there something specific to write, or just write whatever's in your mind?
Literally, like think of a scenario in which you feel challenged. So, people who don't have a lot of confidence in the workplace, or who are maybe struggling in difficult situations in the workplace, or who've been passed over for promotion, will be telling themselves a story about why that is, because our brains like to create meaning out of the experiences. Yeah. And so there's no process, you're just writing. So think of a challenge, write about it, whatever comes out your brain, and then say, right, is this a positive story? Is what I'm thinking helping me to move forward? Is what I'm thinking empowering me in any sort of way? Okay. And then that second bit that I was talking about is what I like to call the old draft and the new draft. So when you write down for the first time, you'll see that old draft. And then another tool that you can use is, what's the new draft? Write a new story. Decide how you're going to speak to yourself. Decide what you're going to say. Decide what you'll say to yourself first thing when you wake up in the morning. Decide what you're going to tell yourself when you're around your boss. Decide what you're going to tell yourself when you're in presentations, whatever that might look like. But create because most of the time we're on autopilot going, yes, I suck at presentations, or my boss hates me, or they're going to reject this bit of work, right? And the final thing for changing how you speak to yourself, which is probably the most important, is you need to create a ritual of actually celebrating your wins, because anyone listening to this will have little wins along the way, and you might not be acknowledging them, but when you start to acknowledge them and you start to celebrate yourself, you'll recognize that others will do that too, because how others treat you is a direct reflection of how you treat yourself.
Yeah, the world's our mirror.
Yes, but what I want to say about this is, I'm not saying celebrate your wins like some woo-woo, oh my God, go and celebrate your wins. I actually mean sit at your desk, like at the end of the day, and go, right, Sarah, what did you get done today? Okay, is this good? Well done, Sarah. Like, this is brilliant stuff. Keep moving, keep pushing. Or when you come out of a presentation, instead of going autopilot and go, oh my God, that was crap, or what people are going to think I don't know what I'm talking about, go, well done, you done your best. And this is what I mean about celebrating your wins and how you talk to yourself. So don't just take this away as it being a kind of abstract thing. Like, set an alarm on your phone when you're actually going to decide to speak nicely to yourself and celebrate yourself. So that's mindset practice number 1, wrapped up.
No, that's brilliant. That's brilliant. And I think it is all about awareness, isn't it? And even when you said about writing down your old story, I guess, and then the new story, I think for me, the word that came up for me was like commitment. It's like, I do think there needs to be, I don't know, what do you think, like a level of commitment? Like, when we're ready to sort of change and move forward, we kind of have to commit to something, don't we? Because it takes time. It could only take 5 minutes, but it's still where we've got to stop and be with ourselves. It's still an effort, isn't it?
It's the consistency. This is the thing, like, what I'll say about these practices are that you've got to be consistent in them. If you want to rewire your brain, if you want to write a new story for yourself, you need to actually make a conscious decision that I am going to do this thing differently from here on in.
Yes.
I'm going to be a different person. I'm going to act and behave differently. I'm going to think differently. I'm going to feel differently. And therefore you will become different. And when you become different, you create different actions, and therefore you get different results. So if you're spinning your wheels, stuck in a spiral, wondering why things aren't changing, start with the most obvious source, which is you, and use these tools. Yes. And again, they might seem abstract, they might seem a little bit fluffy, but what they're actually doing is they're starting to take your brain away from its old focus and onto a new focus.
It's so powerful. And sorry, I haven't got your name there. I agree, but I think confidence comes with time.
This person is spot on. It's not going to happen overnight. So the more that you build these practices in, like, even if you see these things that I'm about to share with you, even if you practice them for 7 days, you would see a difference. Guaranteed. You would absolutely see a difference. And all of my clients have seen differences as well, where they're like, within a week of the things that I'm getting them to do, and they're like, oh, I've started noticing that this is actually better than I looked at it before, and this happened to me, and your brain will start to focus differently on opportunities and successes and things that are going well instead of all the things that aren't.
Okay. Yeah, love it. Right. What's the next one?
Number two. And this is a lot more tangible. Okay. You need to equip your brain to be able to articulate value. Right? That's a big one in getting promoted. Yes. So what is articulating value? So when you're able to communicate a message in which you articulate how what you do saves 3 things, either time, money, or energy, that is you articulating value. So I'm going to give you a little example, right? Okay. Let's take an example of a dating coach. Okay, so a dating coach might work with someone to find their ideal partner, but how would they articulate value? Okay, so they might say something like, okay, I'm going to work with you to identify your red flags in your relationships and your green flags in your relationships, so you stop wasting time on the wrong people. That's an articulation of value, because that person who's looking at a dating coach who's using a dating coach is probably worn out, tired, that they're spending all this time and money on the wrong people and they're still not finding someone. Another way that dating coach might articulate value is say, look, you're probably spending around, say, £10,000 a year on taking the wrong people out to restaurants on a date. How about we work on identifying your ideal person, list all their qualities, figure out where this person hangs out, and look at a strategy to start to attract those types of people into your life, so that you're not wasting all that money on restaurants and dates that don't go anywhere. That's an articulation of value, right? Wow, okay. So in a business sense, you could be looking at, if you're in the corporate world, you could be looking at just some of these activities or projects that you're doing and saying, right, well, what's the real value of what I'm doing here? Like, how is it impacting the bottom line? And articulating value is really important for salespeople, like how they close a sale. They're able to articulate value really well. And what I want people to stop doing is I want them, if you're going in for your performance review or you're sitting with your boss, stop trying to sell all the bells and whistles of what you do. Your boss probably already knows what's on your job description, so you don't need to regurgitate it. What you need to be able to talk about is how what you do is having a positive impact on the business. And that is by articulating value. So the other thing that I need you to know about why this will get you promoted is people are always thinking, I call it WIFM, and WIFM means what's in it for me, right? Yeah. And I've seen people go into performance reviews and they make the critical mistake of being like, and I've done this and I'm amazing and I've built my team and blah, blah, blah. And they're trying to I call it Oliver energy. It's like, please, sir, can I have some more? It's like, please believe in me. Like, I'm so good. Instead,
it's like proving energy, trying to prove. Yeah.
And what they're doing is they're trying to put the focus on themselves, but what they should be doing is putting the focus on the business and their boss. So they go into that performance review and say, right, okay, well, that project I did has saved you about 500 man hours and has resulted in £100,000 saving to the total manpower bill, whatever it is, right? And so what they're doing, because your boss is sitting thinking, well, what's in it for me? How does this help me? So instead of focusing on yourself, which doesn't help your boss, focus on how what you're doing is helping your boss and helping your business. Now that can be, I'm just going to caveat, that can be a little bit difficult if your boss is toxic, right? That's a whole other webinar. But if we just focus on, if you have a good relationship with them, they take care to do your performance review, then that can be a good step. That's, instead of focusing on yourself, tilt that perspective onto them. How are you helping them? Think about serving, all right? And
that's good. Yeah.
So how do you do that? Okay, so first of all, there is an article on my blog, which is on themindover.com, and it's all about articulating value, which I'll try and pull up and put the link in the comments.
That'd be amazing, yes, right? Please.
And number 2 is always be asking yourself this one question. It's, how is what I'm doing important to the business? That's how you start to think from a value-led place. Yeah. How is what I'm doing valuable to the business? And so what that is doing is it's a serving mindset. You're serving, you're looking for ways to add value and give value. And when you're in that kind of energy and that mentality, that mental space, when you're actively trying to give value, you'll find it easier to articulate your value. Okay, so that would be number 2, definitely. Articulate your value. Get your brain equipped to know how to communicate and articulate value. I was talking to someone a few weeks ago and they were like, when I'm in my performance review, I just trip over my words and I don't know what to say and I don't know how to sell myself. And that can feel like a really overwhelming place to be, and it doesn't have to be. Just look at what you've did, understand how it impacts the bottom line, and then talk about it in a way that benefits your boss and the business.
Like break it down, all down.
It's just that it doesn't have to be overwhelming. Selling yourself doesn't need to be overwhelming. It doesn't have to be needy or graspy. It can be almost in that kind of assertive energy. This is what I've done. This is how it impacts the business, and here's what it means for you.
Brilliant. Actually, good. They're good bullet points, actually. Yeah.
And what I'm going to do, I'm just trying to pull up that link, but I'm going to start talking about number 3 as well.
Okay.
If you want me to touch on that, or do you want to ask me any questions?
No, I mean, you can touch on number 3 and then I can ask you some questions.
Okay, perfect.
Right. Have any of these helped you, like in your personal experience? Like,
yeah, massively. Yeah, because, when I first started getting coached, I really didn't have that awareness of like why how I was speaking to myself. I really didn't know. I didn't notice that I was a lot of the time in the inner critic voice in my head. And so that definitely helped me. And the other thing was celebrating my wins, because it was never, as a typical Virgo, I like to be overly critical of myself. So, and I really had to put a lot of emphasis on being able to do or make a practice of that. And that really built up my confidence in who I was, because I was celebrating myself. I wasn't waiting for someone else to do it. And that's what I'll say is, if you're a natural people pleaser, or someone who likes to make friends, or someone who cares about other people's opinions, a lot of the time the natural behaviour can be looking for external validation, and it needs to start inside. I've just posted that link that if anyone wants to see 4 steps to articulating your value.
I will post it because it went in the private chat. I put it out. That's okay. I've posted it.
Awesome. Number 3.
Number 3. I was going to ask you. I was going to say something, but the running theme seems to be awareness. It's like awareness of how you speak to yourself, awareness of how you speak to your boss.
Changes awareness. Honestly, it's like the most underrated thing, and it changes everything. It changes everything. Awareness gets you promoted. It saves marriages and relationships. It helps you feel better. Anyway, so number 3. What?
Awareness and then change.
Yeah,
but
awareness and action.
Aware, can't you? But you can be aware, but you know what's going on. You know what you're doing, but you just can't change it.
As we say in the coaching world, if this is the journey of transformation, I'm over here, 95% of this journey is just creating awareness, and 5% is taking action, right? So number 3, I cannot emphasize this enough. This probably should have been number 1, right? But you need to have a clear vision of where you're going, right? If you don't have a clear vision for yourself, you'll just get sucked into someone else's vision and you'll feel lost, and that can breed a lack of confidence in yourself. So you can literally, this is the first thing I do with all clients as well. I'm like, got to have a vision board.
Oh, brilliant. That's brilliant.
You have got to have a vision of where you're going. You need to make a decision, whether it's about your life, but ultimately we're talking about career. Decide where you want to be in 5 to 10 years time. And it doesn't matter even if you've decided you want to stay in the same place. That's totally fine. I'm not saying you have to have these upper aspirations or whatever. Decide where you want to be that will make you feel fulfilled and happy in 5 or 10 years time, and work to align yourself to that. But the amount of people that I've talked to who are just kind of floating through the system, not quite knowing where they're going, hoping for the best in their performance reviews, and then being dissatisfied. That's just one part of it. Part of it is being dissatisfied that you're not taking control, and you actually can take control. So I'm going to talk about why setting a vision is really important to getting promoted. So it's number one, you're setting a direction, and that works wonders for your brain. And the reason it works wonders for your brain, again, because it gets your brain to focus on what you do want rather than what you don't want. And it starts to create, it starts to strengthen the neural pathways where you're focused on what are the opportunities that align with my vision rather than focusing on all the things that aren't working, right? So you create a vision, you're giving yourself the best chance of actually spotting opportunities that align with that vision. You're giving your brain the best chance, right? It empowers you to focus on the road ahead, which ultimately breeds assertiveness. And assertiveness breeds confidence and trust, right? And the other thing is that when you've got a vision, it also helps you articulate your value, because you're standing in the energy of, I know where I'm going and I know what I need to do to deliver to get there, right? So even if you start with, right, okay, I want to be a commercial director in the next 5 years. Well, how are you going to do that? Make a decision, right? How do you get to that position? What are the steps? And then what are the competencies that you need to fulfill? And then what are the jobs you need to do that show that you've got that competence? It's literally just like, right? And you start to feel more assertive and fulfilled that you're on the right path, okay?
And does it have to be a vision board, or it can be any way, can it? It can be just writing it in a notepad. It's just some clarity.
I'm going to talk to you about what is the one sort of non-negotiable about the vision board, right? But it can be anything. It can be words, right. It can be pictures, it could be numbers, whatever. But I'll talk to you in a second about the one non-negotiable about this. But to wrap that up about how it gets you promoted is because, again, it starts to it helps you activate and align again with positions or tasks or jobs that are in alignment with where you want to go, which is ultimately based on getting promotions, probably, if you want to climb the ladder. And it also starts to shape you into being an expert in your field, because you're focused on something ahead of time. It's like, how am I getting better? Who do I want to become? And so when you're focusing on becoming that, you're probably going to start to position yourself as being having a bit more expertise, or broadening your skill set as well. And the last thing I would say is having a clear vision about where you're going in your career stops you waffling in conversation.
Wow.
It just helps you become really assertive. This is what I've done. This is where I want to go. This is the steps that I need you to support me on as the business, or put me on this training so that I can get there. So it stops you waffling around.
And drifting in the conversation, drifting in your life. If you know what you're doing, you know that how much time you've got, and actually there's not that much time. So when you break it all down,
drifting doesn't get you anywhere. And if that is a strategy that does get you promoted, it's probably because someone's felt a bit sorry for you, or felt like, oh well, they've been here a long time, you should get promoted. But I know that the people in this live stream, I'm speaking to people who are probably interested in being promoted. So hopefully that's not their strategy. So how do you do that? So what am I going to talk about in terms of setting a really clear vision is, number one, get a goal board or a vision board. It's not as woo-woo as you think, okay? Because like I just said, it keeps your brain focused on what you want rather than what you don't want, okay? Number two is, I'm going to paste this in here, which is, I've got something called a vision audit, and I'm going to share it with you.
I haven't heard of that.
What?
Vision audit. I've never heard of that. Yeah.
Well, I created it.
In the chat again. Maybe you can't.
I can't put it in the comments, but you can paste it over. But for anyone listening, all they need to do is go through each of these and tick off whether they've actually got that in place. Okay. And I'm just noticing that the last bit seems to be missing.
I have a vision of what I want my professional.
I don't know where. Hold on. What? Let me just double check. What's it saying? I think that's a hard Y. Let me just paste the rest of it in.
Oh, it's coming to lots of sections.
Wait a minute. I've got the rest of it now. I think it just didn't allow me to paste as much in. I've got it now. If you can paste the rest of it, that would be grand. So these are the key points that I would take people through. and get them to, you can do it in 2 parts. You can either go through these and each of these statements and tick them and say, yes, I've got that. And then you can score it out of 5 in terms of how much time and effort you've put into it. And the last thing I will say, this is my non-negotiable, you need to get that goal board somewhere you can see it every single day. Every single day. Don't do like, oh, I've just got it on Canva, I've got it in a notepad or a laptop. No, that's not going to remind your brain of where you're going. You need to be able to see this every single day. That's why mine is on my wall right here beside my desk. So I look at it, and if ever you don't feel empowered or you're feeling a lack of confidence or you're lost, get in front of your vision board and stand and look at it for 5 minutes and say, right, what am I doing here? What am I doing with my life? What do I want? What do I need to do differently? Start to ask yourself those intentional questions to get in alignment with where you're going.
Yeah. And sorry, just to say, Sarah, this, what I've copied and pasted here, these are like instructions, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
These are kind of like instructions, yeah?
Well, for each statement, so I have a vision of what I want my professional and personal life to look like. That's a statement. You tick that. Do you have it or do you not?
Oh,
the next one, I have a timeline for my vision. Do you have it or do you not? I tap into the feelings that I would like to have when I've achieved my vision on a daily basis. Do you do that or not? Sorry, it's just the way I've copied it out of Canva and it's not quite.
No, that's okay. Yeah. No, that's fine. That's fine. So it's like a guideline. People can look at this and.
That's right. And just go through it and see, and that guideline will help them see whether they've actually, if they've really empowered themselves in alignment with having a vision. So even if they've got a goal board just now or a vision board just now or an idea of where they want to go through these statements, tick them off and say, right, am I empowering myself as much as I could be? Or where are some of my gaps that I could do better in terms of building a solid personal and professional vision for myself?
Brilliant, amazing. You have shared so many tips and tricks. And I think if we could do all of those, I think, you can see how that could really change and have a huge impact on your life. Is there anything else you want to say before we go?
I would just like to say, for anyone tuning in, you can go and follow me on LinkedIn if you want. I am under Sarah Saxon, and I would love that. Just let me know if you want to connect. And thank you so much for inviting me on. I've really, really enjoyed this.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and if anybody wants to contact Sarah, please feel free to message or me, or in the comments if you want to add anything in the comments, anything else that you've tried that's worked. We're always open to hearing other experiences, aren't we? But thank you so much, everybody, and thank you so much, Sarah, and I will see everybody next week.
Bye.